Hi everybody, I'm meteorologist Matt Lanza. Welcome to the WKTV.com weather blog. We're going to be talking about the tropics here since this is going to be an interesting issue over the next several days. Maybe not directly impacting us here in central New York, but certainly you'll be hearing about it on the news. So we just want to kind of prime you here. The tropics are certainly heating up, and that's an understatement right now. We've got Gustav, a tropical storm over Jamaica right now in the Caribbean. We've got Hannah, not in Montana. Right now, Hannah's out in the Atlantic Ocean. That's another storm. And we're also talking about maybe some other systems here as we go through the next couple of days into next week. It has certainly started to heat up. The peak of hurricane season, incidentally, is on September 10th. So we are rapidly approaching that right now. Let's give you the big overview. Here is Tropical Storm Hannah now. There's San Juan, Puerto Rico right there. So it's quite a bit of ways away from anybody at this point in time. This is Gustav. Doesn't exactly look like a stellar storm, but it's certainly got its act together. And it's got its wind, it's got its rain. It's a very healthy storm. And then right on the left edge of the map right here, you can see another system kind of blowing up in what we call the Bay of Campeche, in between the Yucatan and mainland of Mexico. Have to watch that. And incidentally, there's also back off to the east near Africa other systems to talk about. So the tropics have certainly started to heat up in a big way. Let's take it a little bit closer, and we'll obviously focus on Gustav first. That is the main storm right now. Gustav made landfall over Jamaica a couple of hours ago. This is going to continue across Jamaica here and eventually work its way back out over open water in the Caribbean. Let's take a look at the forecast for Gustav, at least the official National Hurricane Center forecast. You can see as of this evening 70-mile-an-hour winds. Let's move you forward in time here and track Gustav. As it passes through Jamaica, eventually it starts to strengthen into a hurricane. Category 1, then a Category 2. Then the National Hurricane Center says at least a Category 3. But as we've seen over the last several years, once these storms get into this high-octane water, which we'll talk about in a second, they like to really explode. And this could easily become a Category 4 or 5, at least briefly, while it's out here over the open water. Eventually, though, the official track takes Gustav into Louisiana, but of course, the focus is on the cone, is what we call it, the cone of error, meaning that at this point there's confidence that Gustav could make landfall somewhere between Florida and, well, Texas, which is a very big area, but that's really what we're faced with 5 days out when we're forecasting hurricanes. Lots of room for error in these exact forecasts. This is a map of water temperatures, and we don't have the exact plots of temperatures on here, but what I can tell you is this. Right down here in the central Gulf, and especially as you get right in here, in between the Yucatan Peninsula and Cuba, what we call the Yucatan Straits, there is very, very warm water, and it's very deep water as well. And hurricanes like deep, warm water, significantly so. That's why we think Gustav is going to pretty much, over the next 3 days, explode here as it moves out of the Caribbean and into the Gulf. Eventually probably maxing out somewhere here, because then you notice near the shoreline, the water temperatures come down just a bit. And also the water itself becomes a little shallower, so that's less conducive for hurricanes to maintain themselves. So what we're probably going to be dealing with is a very strong hurricane moving somewhere in here, but weakening as it does so. We saw that with Katrina. We saw that with Rita as well back in 2005. Those were big storms. They caused a lot of damage. So it doesn't really necessarily mean anything that the fact that the storm is weakening. Let's take you down because we want to talk about something else, because obviously with the storm in the Gulf, there's a big question mark about oil, and everybody knows about oil prices and how high they've been lately. Well, what we did here is put together a map showing you the highest concentration and lowest concentration of the oil fields or the oil production facilities in the Gulf of Mexico here, the red indicating the highest. Here's Louisiana right here. So it's mainly just south of Louisiana. Well, let's take a look at the track of Gustav overlaid on this. And you can see it moves right almost into the heart of oil country here. So this is going to be something to watch, and that's one of the other reasons why this is going to be a big news story. Obviously, the point that may impact New Orleans goes without saying. The fact that it may impact the oil fields also is kind of a big deal as well, but there have been a lot of changes since Katrina and Rita back in 2005 in the construction and how everything works down here. So that may kind of lessen the blow on oil prices down that way, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Obviously, that's a long way off. Let's talk about Hannah. Here's Tropical Storm Hannah starting to get its act together out here over the Atlantic right now. Let's take a look at the track of Hannah, at least the forecasted track over the next couple of days. This one's going to be interesting as well because one of our computer models earlier today suggested that this was going to basically follow in Gustav's footsteps except going through Florida. But over the next couple of days, you can see Hannah strengthens into a hurricane, or is forecasted to strengthen into a hurricane. Not a strong one necessarily, but one nonetheless. And it also slows down a bit as we go toward Tuesday as it starts to kind of bend to the left toward the Florida coast. Doesn't mean it's going to move into Florida. In fact, there are some computer models that suggest it's going to make a right hook and go out to sea. We'll have to wait and see on this one. At this point, Hannah is the least of our worries. We're more focused on Gustav right now. But nonetheless, this just kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about in the tropics. Obviously, again, here in central New York, we don't have to deal with the direct impacts at this point in time. We could eventually down the line see some rainfall from this. But nonetheless, it is an interesting topic to discuss. We just wanted to give you a little bit more information on it, since we obviously have to focus on our own weather during our weathercasts here closer to home. We'll keep you posted on that right here in the blog. And enjoy your Labor Day weekend, because as we've been telling you, weather-wise, it looks fantastic. Have a good day and a good night.